shout out to him. But again, really nice to see everybody. Thank you for coming. We are Team OAS, the Organization of American States, and we traveled to Peru for our project, a gender-focused analysis of water management in Huaraz, Peru. So our map for today will start with a bit more about the OAS, followed by our project and fieldwork, as well as our findings and our recommendations moving forward that the OAS can use to lobby the Peruvian government. So our client, the Organization of American States, calls for all member states to strive for peace and justice, to foster solidarity, strengthen collaboration, and defend their sovereignty, their territorial integrity, and their independence. The project is part of the America's Water Program that promotes sustainable water management and enhancing adaptive capacities to address climate change. The OAS and the America's Water Program supports Peru in improving the management, conservation, and sustainable use of surface and groundwater resources. So as for our team, we have Sifiso Madonko, who is passionate about addressing the challenges of climate change and poverty with a particular interest in marginalized communities. I'm Maddie Sides, and I specialize in policy issues ranging from climate change to the spread of misinformation. I'm passionate about climate justice and social equity and increasing communities' resilience amidst climate change. We have Anna Szigeti, who is passionate about climate policy and food security challenges. She advocates for social equality and strives to work on both social and climate justice related issues. And Katherine, who is a policy analyst with a strong interest in environmental policy and public health. She's particularly passionate about exploring the intersections between environmental sustainability, health equity, and social justice. And I will pass it on to Katherine to give a bit more background on Peru and our methodology.
So as we can see, here's the two pictures here, and it shows what the Cordillera Blanca glaciers looks like in 1966 and 2019. And we can clearly see the glacier retreat here. This is what Huaraz is dealing with. Because of climate change, the glacier is melting and the water quantity is getting worse and worse. It is not just an environmental problem, it's also affects the local communities, especially women who often don't have much say in how water is managed there. Peru is one of the countries in South America most affected by climate change. We can see it in this little map. Peru is divided into three main regions. The yellow part, the Cusca, which is very hot and dry and have desert, and the Andes Mountains, which is the brown part, we have a mix of climate, which have a mix of climates from semi-arid to cold and wet. And the last one is the Amazon forest, which is humid and raining. And because each region faces different climate risks, so making it really hard to find just one solution perfectly fit for every region. Rainfall decreasing, and then climate change and temperature rising especially affected the Cordillera Blanca glacier, which already causing major problems, less reliable water resources, more pollution, and growing challenges for the people who depend on this ecosystem. We use National Climate Change Adaptation Plan and Gender and Climate Change Adaptation Plan as the guiding framework. We mainly focus on gender and climate change adaptation plan. In our field work, it was echoed that Peruvian government gender is a discourse, not a practice. And like a limited resource, hinder effective implementation of the policy. This is why we find a gap exists between policy design and on the ground action. In our research, we use quantitative approach to get better understand of the challenges communities in Huaraz face due to climate change and glacial melts. We combine the review of academic and policy literature with interviews and focus groups with local leaders, government officials, women groups, and NGOs in both Huaraz and Lima. Interviews was semi-structured, held in both English and Spanish. And I'm going to pass it to Sifiso to talk about our story and what we see in the field study in Peru.
Thank you very much, KK. So like in the next few slides, I will present the findings, essentially looking at the domino effect of climate change in Huaraz and the gendered impacts. So like in our fieldwork, we visited two main locations. So the first one was a Canrea Chico community, so it's underlined in red. And then the other map was Yupa community. So first of all, I just want to highlight that the Correda Blanca glaciers are absolutely stunning, beautiful, and we as a team were very fortunate enough to witness such beauty. However, a key finding from our report is that these glaciers are highly vulnerable and sensitive to climatic changes, and with warming temperatures, they are melting at an accelerated rate. So like in both images, you can notice that, some mountain ranges still have snow cover. However, like some of them, some of them still have snow cover and some of them still don't have, snow cover. So this is essentially like the reality in Huaraz. The glaciers are melting. So discussions with community leaders, they shared that in the span of just 2 decades, the glaciers within the community have completely disappeared. So the melting glaciers has led to both changes in water quantity and quality. The disappearance of snow caps have caused key river basins to reach critical levels, which has led to some of them running dry. But however, water acidification is the biggest challenge that most communities are facing right now. So as you can see in both images, the accelerated glacial melt has exposed underlying rocks, leading to chemical reactions that have turned the water from turquoise blue to orange, and essentially communities now cannot use that water anymore. Community leaders essentially emphasize that water is life. Without it, there's nothing. Due to gendered roles, water scarcity increases women's vulnerability by intensifying their unpaid care work responsibilities, such as household chores. So looking at the barriers to women's participation in water governance, time poverty was a reoccurring theme that we heard throughout all of our focus groups. Many stakeholders highlighted that women do not have enough time, which has led to limited participation in government-led water workshops. This is due to unpaid care work, such as caring for children, collecting water, and engaging in household responsibilities. So, for example, while we were in Lupa, women are not actively involved in water practices, again, due to household responsibilities. Another barrier is that men own more land than women, which limits women's access to water rights and the ability to participate in water management decision-making. As a result of this, this prevents women's access to critical information such as climate change, like water-related knowledge, which then also reduces their resiliency and adaptive capacities. So looking at the economic toll, most communities in Huaraz engage in subsistence or small-scale farming. These communities are now facing detrimental impacts. Water contamination, as I mentioned, such as acidification, has led to reduced crop yields, which in turn affects food security and then also threatens their sort of like the vital source of income. So the picture shown here was taken while we were in Yupa. So a community leader essentially told us that the river stream and the photo, as you can see, once provided water for the livestock. However, due to its rapid decline over the years, it has essentially made it like the water unsafe for contamination. Tourism has also been affected. So the melting glaciers and the vanishing glaciers have drastically reduced tourism. One community leader shared that many years ago, the community was once thriving with visitors, but now the present and sad reality is that no tourists no longer visit this area anymore. So the decline in economic opportunities has contributed to migration of young people. So many young men have left the communities in search of work in larger cities to essentially seek greener pastures. This migration has placed even greater pressure on women who, due to caregiving roles and social norms, are less mobile. Community leaders shared this reality with deep sadness, describing how their once vibrant community now feels like it's slowly disappearing. I'll pass it on to Anna, who will talk about community resilience.
Thank you, Sifiso. Expanding on the idea of migration and how it has left communities essentially without a middle-aged demographic of young adults. It is the same issue as we have seen with the Escal presentation. Although some communities do find resilience within this migration, women, elderly women especially, are stepping up and forming, for example, in Canre Chico, with elderly men, a water security task force where they tackle these issues together. In other communities, for example, like Yupa, women are not only not included in the decision-making processes surrounding water rights, they're not even included in the conversation. This is also echoed in a bureaucratic gap where when a woman and a man go and apply for water rights together, during the intake process, the street level bureaucrats only include the man's name and omit the woman's. However, on a more positive note, I'd like to highlight how women are involved in nature-based solutions, especially in the Canre Chico region. Women are involved in the region, their voices are being heard, and change is possible. Through collaboration with local University of Huaraz, as well as government organizations, they work together in building these nature-based solutions. There are 5 basins in the region. Each basin cost approximately $65,000 to build, and each basin takes approximately 2 to 3 years to build by hand. These are all hand dug and kept alive by the local community as well as students. These initiatives have shown how women, local women with no prior scientific background, were taught how to calculate pH levels using little test sticks. They also maintain the nature-based solutions as we can see here. This is the clean water that comes out of the basins. However, these efforts are significant. They're all in vain if there is no funding. Due to lack of funding and proper infrastructure, clean water trickles back to the acidic rivers. As we can see here, the clean water flows straight back into the acidic rivers. These are also due to the fact that nature-based solutions fall under the same category as any other infrastructure building processes around the country. Like if you want to build a road, a bridge, maintain these all fall under the same category. You can only imagine how clogged up the system is due to this. So we would like to propose 4 recommendations to our client, and we hope that our client brings these to the Peruvian government. On a short-term basis, we propose that the water right intake form includes another name so that women can have their names appeared in the water right. And then on a medium term, we propose that the Gender and Climate Action Plan be assessed regularly and that there are proper mechanisms offering monitoring and evaluation, and any gaps that are found can be addressed. In addition, we are hoping that nature-based solutions fall under a different category of infrastructure so that the system is not as clogged. And finally, we hope to see more collaboration within ministries, for example, the agricultural ministry as well as the water ministry, so that both water title and land titles can be more inclusive to women. And finally, thank you all for being here today. Muchas gracias. And on a final note, I'd also like to highlight the people that have been with us on this journey. Without them, this would not have been possible. So thank you so much.
Congratulations. So we have, I think we have already our clients on Zoom. Mauricio, sir? Mauricio or Alexandra? Oh, Xavier is the faculty lead for this team. And we have as clients Alexandra Carlier and Mauricio Serna. They are ready to present their first takes or comments, questions. Who wants to start? Alexandra, Mauricio, welcome.
Well, thank you so much for this well-researched presentation. You've outlined a number of concrete barriers and policy recommendations, many of which are highly relevant for the water and climate context in Peru. That said, on area, I'm curious to hear more about and it's fully and isn't fully addressed in your recommendation is how to actually trigger institutional change in a context where gender equality is still more rhetoric than practice. Based on your fieldwork, what do you see as a more realistic entry point to shift from recognition to real implementation, especially in rural areas where resistance may to be strongest? That's my question. But congratulations. Thank you. Really, thank you so much.
Alexandra, would you like to add a question right now too?
No,
Or
I think the
comment?
question. I think the question is already quite broad from what Mauricio mentioned. I just would like to add, because I'm not sure we will have the time to say it after. I know the time is really short. So I just want to thank you, the team, for the presentation. And on behalf of the Organization of American States, we really want to sincerely thank you for the work you have done over the past month. And also, we believe you approach a very complex, very timely, important topic. Climate resilience, inclusive water management in Peru, with a lot of professionalism, curiosity, and I think a lot of care. So, and something I wanted to say is that your contribution has brought real value to our work on the ground, and that was really important for us. So it's always a pleasure to contribute with the GP² for us from the OES.
Great.
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you both. And we really appreciate our time in Peru. I think we learned a lot. It's changed all four of us as people. And shout out Mauricio for showing us around the first week and feeding us yummy food and giving us the tips on Peruvian culture and cuisine. I can just start as for your question, Mauricio. I think something that was highlighted to us early on in Huaraz was the impact and power of ALA, the local water authority, the engineers, as well as the street level bureaucrats who really took us through on field work and showed their connections to the local communities. I think building more connections between ALA, ANA, as well as local leaders and those local leader women in Canary Chico, especially. Yeah, those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah, when we first went into the field, we thought that we would be met with lots of resistance, that women are not actually included. And we didn't expect the government to show up as it did, as Maddie highlighted. In addition, I feel that it is hard to tackle an issue that is so vast. Each community has their own issues, their internal conflict, as they were highlighted in both here and in our interviews. And so it is hard for the government to just go in and be like, okay, you have to be more inclusive. Let's talk about that. It's not something that you just change from one day to another. And so I find that examples like Canary Chico, where the community took it upon themselves to tackle the migration issue and see how elderly women could also take up the space that these young people are leaving, is to just take that and share it with other communities and try to find people who we worked with and essentially share their passion for water, for women, for equality, and just life for everyone.
Yeah, so like in one of our recommendations, we had suggested that, like the government should try tackle sort of like the institutional capacity. So essentially trying to sort of like streamline sort of like educational practices or training programs on how to increase the gender perspective, within the government. So yeah, so that was essentially like one of the recommendations, just to increase like the adaptive capacity through like either training or educational purposes.
Yeah, I think my teams already cover most of it. And I just want to highlight that when we go to the field study, and I think we show here is a picture that they have the plant filters, and that's like technical like plant filters thing is actually built by the Huaraz like local university. So like I would say like building the connection between the like community itself and like from the government and also the local universities help, and that can actually helps a lot. And yeah, it's just, you know, one thing that also like impressive me very much. Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, team. Now the turn for Andre, the faculty lead, to ask a question or make a comment.
Well, thank you very much. I'll start thanking everyone for the opportunity, the GP² for engaging me. And it actually was Alexandra that mentioned my name first time around, because we worked together in Peru a few years ago. And I couldn't think of a greater team to be together, because each one of them bring specific aspects of their work that is relevant to what they have done. I liked how you all answered the question that Mauricio asked. Another layer, excuse me, excuse me. Another layer of your answer that is in your report is about the language. So the Quechua language, not everyone speaks the language. So I think when we think about institutionalization, is spreading that knowledge and addressing gender issues, I think the language, as you pointed out in your report, is one important aspect. I think it's kind of almost like a cheesy question, but I think it's still valid from the point of view that the four of you now are not the same if we compare it to when you started this project. So my question is, if you were to do it again, what aspect of this journey would you change or would you look at differently? And then I'm cheating now. It's not a second part to the same question. It's a different question. But was the most eye-opening finding that you had throughout this journey? And thank you again.
Thank you very much, Andre. I think for me, regarding to your first question, I really enjoyed going up into sort of like visiting, like the communities. So one thing that I would have changed is actually getting like a, sort of like having more interactions with community leaders, because that was essentially very like impactful, just seeing, the way of life and, them kind of sharing how, once like the glaciers, once like the snow caps were, there and then everything just kind of disappeared. So just hearing those stories, because I feel like for me, like it really hit harder for me, just essentially just hearing those personal stories. And then I think like regarding your second question, I think one thing that really surprised me was essentially like the water like acidification, because like prior, before like our field work, we kind of assumed that like most of the impacts would be essentially like flooding, but then going to Chico and actually seeing firsthand how the glacier retreat has led to chemical reactions, and as a result the community essentially can't use the water. So I think that one was something that I really wasn't expecting.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew, for asking these two questions. It's very deep, and I'm actually thinking about it when I'm standing here. And I think the one thing that I wish that I can improve, or I wish I can realize it earlier, is about the interviews that we did with our stakeholders. So I think it's just like me personally, like when we're doing the interviews and stuff, and we know a lot of like their stories, and also like the thing like they want to cooperate, like for example with other ministry or with other NGO groups. So I wish that like I can just realize that like a little bit earlier before I do the interview, so like I can have the better prepare for the interview questions. But I think we did kind of change our strategy, like from the first stakeholder interviews, like to the last one, we kind of adjust our questions and our strategies facing that. So I think that's go through very smoothly at the end. And the other thing with the second one is yeah, surprising me. I think it's just more like when we actually be there and we saw the like all the water pollutions, all the glacial retreat in real life, and that is like such a strong like vision like thing for me, because it's just so different than the academic study that I read from the book. And I think this is a thing that I very appreciate that we have this privilege to see it in person.
Yeah, I won't echo too much and repeat what my colleagues and friends have said. I also think getting the opportunity to speak to more local leaders would have been amazing, but due to time constraints, that's just not possible. I think we learned the most out there in Huaraz. I think something surprising was how welcoming every single interviewee stakeholder partner was, how eager they were to show us their land, show us their work. One example in Canare Chico, the women talked about the pH levels, but also about their traditional Quechua rainfall calendar that they keep to predict when agricultural seasons will be best to plant. And that really clicked for me that climate change is impacting hundreds of years of traditional ancestral indigenous knowledge, which is also very relevant in Canada. So I think that bridged the gap between our work and when we came home. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, I guess I have to talk now. Just to echo off of Maddie and what everyone has said, this is actually a sink that I photographed in one of our community members who brought us into his home, and his daughter was amazing. His wife was also amazing. But then he just turned on the faucet and he was like, this is where our water comes from. And I was like, turn it off, turn it off. Especially like after you hear all of these issues about like water quantity and how the water is literally shipped to their houses and stored in containers. And then we also got to meet little guinea pigs as well and got to hold them. So it was just like so welcoming, and we're just so grateful to be here.
Thank you so much, Anna. I think we have time for one more question from the audience. Anybody? Yes, Marcos. I bet you're into environment too.
Great job, guys. Really good presentation. Throughout your presentation, you guys outlined how important the gender was and how women are disproportionately affected by the effects of climate change. I was wondering if you guys could speak more about the role that you see men playing in changing policy in Latin America or Peru.
Very good question. So most of the people that we interacted with on a government level, especially in the local region, were all men. And so it was actually very interesting to see how inclusive they were and how they were approaching the issue. And they didn't stand there and just assume that they knew how women felt. No, they said that we don't know what it's like to be a woman. And so they never took that step where they would feel like they would be talking down. And I thought that was a very interesting finding, and it was just so respectful as well. So I don't know if anybody else wants to speak.
Yeah, I think just the local leaders, there were men and women in those local communities in Yupa and Canare Chico. And even although in Yupa there was less of women's involvement, it still was apparent that when we were speaking to a local leader man, that he was interested in women becoming more involved in water management, and that men in their local communities, whether they're in positions of bureaucratic power or not, are still agents of authority and can really maybe even lobby like local officials to include local women in the processes. So yeah, good question. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mauricio, Alexandra, for your trust. Thank you, Andre, for leading this team. A round of applause for them, and also for Madeleine, Katherine, Sifiso, and Anna Leila. Another round of applause for the whole team, Fundación Scale, and also the organization.